Bills Mafia on tonight's Air Raid Hour. Dave and I will be making our 2024 season predictions. We're talking Bills stats leaders, Bills win total, winners, league MVP, and of course, Super Bowl champions. That is all on the docket this evening. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour presented by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. Dave, we have made it to the NFL regular season. Kicks off on Thursday. We got a Friday game this week from Brazil on Peacock. And then, of course, the Buffalo Bills kick it off with their home opener on Sunday, 1 p.m., Highmark Stadium. Not going to talk a lot of Bills-Cardinals tonight. We might talk about that a little bit at the end of the show. But that is because right now that we're into the regular season, we have our Buffalo Bills pregame show, which will be airing this Sunday morning, 8 a.m. right here on the Cover One Sports Network YouTube page. And then, of course, if you can't catch us at 8 a.m., you've got 9 through 1 p.m. to catch that pregame show on demand before the Bills and the Cardinals kick off.
Yeah, it's going to be hopefully a quick week, right? You got the holiday today. Hopefully some people are still off of work. You're going back to a short week. And like I said on last week's show, that having the Friday game is nice because it always feels like that Thursday opener is just like you get it and then you got to wait another 2 full days plus the half a day on Sunday to get to the Bills game. So, yeah, it's nice. My wife will be definitely interested in that Brazil game, being a Packers fan. So the Jordan Love era is beginning, or has begun, I should say, in Green Bay, and it's off to a good start. But man, anxiety will set in, I think, leading up to Sunday for sure.
Yeah, it was really funny. I saw a tweet from Uber today where it was like everyone wants to talk about who is the next Cooper Kupp, but really what he's thinking about who's going to be the next Mac Jones. And there was just a picture of Jordan Love and CJ Stroud on there because it's going to be really interesting with Jordan Love getting that contract to see how he goes out there and he performs on Friday. The one thing that I think I'm most looking forward to this week to help maybe curb some of that anxiety of game week being back into our lives is I'm really looking forward to seeing official injury reports from the Buffalo Bills, because all we've really gotten the past couple of weeks without official injury reports is just like taking Sean McDermott's word for it and like vague responses when it comes to timelines for certain Buffalo Bills players making their return. So seeing who practices this week, seeing who shows up on the injury report, and then ultimately whoever is ruled questionable, out, etc. by the end of the week will give us some information on guys. There are some questions surrounding, including Curtis Samuel and MVS on offense, and then Balon Spector, Mike Edwards, Cole Bishop, and DeMar Hamlin on defense.
Yeah, and I mean that Wednesday practice, right, is gonna come with a lot of people holding their breath on seeing what's going to happen for that first practice report. How will the Bills list these guys? You would imagine like they're going to list them with the injuries that they've had throughout camp. I doubt you see any guys kind of being held out for vet rest like you saw throughout camp. These are going to be real injuries that people are, these guys are not practicing for. And what you really hope, I would say, is as many guys, even if there's a long list of names on the injury report, if you see a lot of limiteds on Wednesday, I think that's generally going to be trending us hopefully in the right direction for Sunday.
All right, so let's get into it. And this evening, we're going to start with Buffalo Bills specific predictions for this season. And we're going to start with Josh Allen. This is something that we've already done this offseason, this over-under that we're about to do, but I want to revisit it now that we've had a chance to see the Buffalo Bills go through training camp, see how they've come out health-wise, etc., heading into week 1 of the season. And the first prediction I want to make this evening is an over-under on Josh Allen's touchdown total. He's had 40 plus touchdowns each of the last 4 seasons. That's an NFL record by 2 full seasons. Over under Josh Allen getting 40 touchdowns combined this season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at last year's numbers, it was the first year since 2019, his second year that he didn't pass for at least 30 touchdowns, was just under that with 29 last year. And if you look at the 4 years prior to that, 35, 36, 37, I'm sorry, the 3 years prior to that, right at that 35 passing TD number. Now, last year, obviously, he was buoyed by the huge amount of rushing TDs with 15. So I do think that becomes a little bit more balanced again this year. I think you see him maybe go back to that, 7 to 9, maybe 7 to even double digit range on rushing, but I think he puts up over 30 passing. So I will go over the 40 touchdowns, but I don't think it will be by much. I think that's a good number. Yeah. I think 41, 42 is probably once again another MVP caliber season if he puts up 42 total touchdowns this year.
I think the biggest obstacle in Josh Allen's way from repeating this 40 touchdown total is not, can he overcome the loss of Stephon Diggs? I actually think that the loss of Stephon Diggs goes to his advantage a little bit, because I don't think Josh is going to be locked on to certain receivers like he has been in years past. It's that sort of wide receiver by committee approach that you saw from Green Bay last year. The biggest obstacle to Josh Allen eclipsing this total is going to be the running game. Like, how much of an emphasis are they going to put on James Cook? And then more specifically, we've seen this guy have a huge preseason, Ray Davis. How much emphasis is going to be put on getting the ball into Ray Davis's hands at the goal line in some of these short yardage situations? Is that going to take away from Josh Allen's touchdown total? But at the end of the day, even though it sounds like a lot, Josh Allen is the Buffalo Bills offense. Being under 40 touchdowns would mean that he accounts for less than 2.3 touchdowns a game. And I just have such a hard time believing that he can't score 2.5 touchdowns a game on average. Like, to me, like, it's Josh Allen. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, when you break it down on a per game basis, it seems like quite achievable, but then you're like, well, is the Bills offense going to be as proficient this year? Are they going to be in that sort of 27 points per game range that they were in last year? Are they going to maybe dip back down into that sort of 21 to 24 points per game range? And in which case, yeah, if you have other guys getting rushing TDs, et cetera, you could see him maybe below that 2.3 mark, maybe somewhere around the 2 mark, which is still quite good, right? That puts him at 35-ish touchdowns with 17 games, 36 touchdowns, with 17 games. So that's still quite a good number. And then all he would have to do is get 4 more somewhere across the rest of the game. So look, I'll say over because we need him, I think, to be over. If he's under, there's a lot of ways, obviously, that this could go. He could still have a fantastic season, even if he is under that number. We'll just have to see. But for now, I will say over.
Path to Fame Gaming comes in. He says 2 words, Dalton Kincaid. And that sort of transitions us into our next topic of conversation here, which is, who is the Bills' leading receiver this year? And the metric we're going by isn't yards, isn't touchdowns. We're going in targets. Who is Josh Allen by season's end going to throw the ball the most to? I think the obvious candidate here is Dalton Kincaid, but you also have a relatively versatile type of guy in Curtis Samuel. And then you have probably one of the most efficient receivers in the history of the NFL, or at least he was last year, right? That season that Khalil Shakir had with limited targets was video game-esque, and he's in line to see even more targets this season. Who ends up as the Buffalo Bills' most targeted receiver? I think both of us said Kincaid to this prior to the preseason, but then we saw guys like Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir making some plays out there. Has your mind been changed?
My mind has not been changed. I'm still going with Dalton Kincaid, and for the same reasons I mentioned when we set the expectations for the offense earlier. You have all those targets leaving between Diggs and Davis. Kincaid was already second on the team in targets last year as a rookie tight end, which we know Um, pretty much up until Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta really had those years outside of like TJ Hawkinson in recent years, rookie tight ends haven't produced a ton their first year historically, if you go back like the last 2+ decades. So what he did last year was special. What Sam Laporta did last year was special. I think that continues into this year. And I think that what happens with Shakir, Samuel, Coleman is that those guys are all going to get plenty of targets, but I think
Mhm.
there's 3 of them. They all play receiver, and I know Kincaid, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of all fungible at the end of the day anyway, but I think Kincaid earned that trust Josh Allen last year, showing what he could do as a rookie, and the ability for him to get in and out of his breaks as big as he is. It's a matchup issue every time he steps on the field for the defense. I have a hard time not seeing Dalton Kincaid lead the team.
Yeah, I mean, 90 targets last year, and it feels like he wasn't even targeted that much. So, like, that number is going to go up this year for Dalton Kincaid. I'm with you in terms of Dalton Kincaid, but I like this other comment from Path to Fame Gaming here. He says, "We got studs like Cook, Kincaid, Shakir, Knox, and Samuel. The Patriots used to use that death by 1,000 paper cuts approach, and that's what the Buffalo Bills are going to do." And I agree. I think
Mhm,
Dalton Kincaid is probably going to lead this team in target, but you're not going to see somebody pushing the target share that like a Stephon Diggs had when
mhm.
he was here.
Yep.
Jason M just with a comment doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about on this show, but I really like this comment. So I wanted to bookmark it here and I wanted to read it. He says, "I wonder if Joe Brady will have the awareness to know when we need to run the ball if Josh starts to get erratic and frustrated. Dorsey wanted Josh to throw out of it. He feels like run out of stagnation." I'll tell you what, this is a great comment because of this game that we have coming up. I obviously live out here in Phoenix, Arizona. I was having a conversation with my brother-in-law about this game coming up, and he literally said the only thing that I am hoping for in terms of the Cardinals having a chance to win this football game is that Josh Allen is trying to feel out his receivers, maybe is a little too amped up and turns the ball over a ton. He's like, I really feel like that's our team's only chance. And it really got me thinking as I was having a conversation with him. And I don't know if anyone's had a chance to really look over the Cardinals depth chart yet. They have a pretty good roster, with the exception of their front seven on defense is historically atrocious. It is not pretty, their front seven. So I
Mhm.
honestly wonder if Josh Allen struggles a little bit with the connection he has with these new receivers, if the Bills are looking to save maybe some of the more fancy stuff they have cooking up for the Dolphins because they have a short week on Thursday Night Football. I'm not going to go to the degree of the Dallas Cowboys game, right? But I would not be surprised if you saw a very, very run heavy Bills approach on Sunday and them just trying to carve up this Arizona Cardinals defense, which is not very good up front.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happened a little bit in the opening week last week, but that
Mhm.
was sort of a different animal, right? Because we knew how good that Jets defense was, and maybe there was a little bit more pressing in that case. Like in this situation, you have to go in like, yes, it's a new season. We don't know exactly what the Cardinals are going to be. I think they could surprise some teams. I still don't think their defense is going to be that great, especially the front seven, like you said. So there should be opportunities here, right, for this team.
Mhm.
I don't think this is a game where like you need to press like in week ones of past years. The Jets and the Steelers come to mind of recent years against good defenses where this team has pressed and week one has kind of fallen flat. I'm hoping that's not the case this year, and it's more akin to kind of like what we saw in that game against the Rams a couple years ago.
Mhm.
They had a good defense coming into that game, but the Bills just did what they needed to do, didn't press. Um, and in that game, I think the Bills probably felt like the pressure was on the Rams. They were playing in LA after the Rams had won the Super Bowl. And so the Bills are going to have pressure, obviously, to win this game because they're going to be big favorites. But the matchup is a good one for the Bills to start
Mhm.
the season against the front seven. That shouldn't give them a ton of problems.
Got Sophia G coming in saying, smash that like button. Appreciate your kind words here, Sophia. And she says she won the cover one Coleman jersey. Thanks. Yes. Hey, if you haven't already, get into the show description here. Head on over to cover1.football and sign up for the Cover One pass. It's well worth your yearly subscription. You'll get a whole bunch of insider information from guys like Eric. You'll get a whole bunch of smaller more intimate type of content from guys like Greg, Aaron, Anthony, And you'll get access to our Cover One Discord channel where we have some great conversations. We have awesome giveaways like the Cover One Coleman jersey. Sophia is a big part of the conversation that we have in Discord every week. So join the Cover One One Pass Premier membership. Head on over to cover1.football to get signed up for that today. All right. I think we have one more thing on the offense here, and that is who's a sleeper? Like one player, I don't want to say come out of nowhere, right? Because we've been talking about the Bills all summer. We've literally unearthed every rock there is to talk about. But like from the national media perspective, right?
Yep.
Put yourself in the shoes of a person living in another city who doesn't follow the Buffalo Bills, but follows the National Football League. At the end of the year, who's a player they're going to go like, whoa, didn't know that guy existed. Who do you got?
Well, didn't know that guy existed. I don't think it's that, but I think there's two guys. One's a rookie, and that's Ray Davis, and the other's Dawson Knox, kind of the forgotten man as the tight end too. And Davis is going to get playing time, right? We've seen the Bills go, and even with James Cook's year last year, give the ball to Latavius Murray, give the ball to Ty Johnson. So there are going to be opportunities for Ray Davis to make a mark on this offense, but Dawson Knox is the guy that I keep coming back to because we talk about the uncertainty of the receivers, right? And okay, can Shakir continue that efficiency into this year? Coleman as a rookie, the expectations. Samuel, is Joe Brady going to be able to deploy him effectively? Is he going to be able to stay healthy with the fact that he's had this sort of lengthy injury history? And then there's Dawson Knox, who's been the longest tenured receiving option, I'll say, of this roster that Josh Allen has had. And he has trust in Dawson Knox. And Dawson Knox, at times in the past, in big games, Patriots playoff game, Chiefs regular season games, and others, has made big catches and touchdowns in big moments. So I wouldn't forget about Dawson Knox. I think with him being injured last year, kind of like, and Kincaid stepping up, like it was kind of a little bit easy to forget about him, but I wouldn't forget about him this year. I think he's going to have a good impact. I think he could, as a dark horse, maybe lead the team in touchdown receptions out of all these guys. So don't forget about Dawson Knox, a guy that was on the national media stage for angry runs and things like that a couple years ago, but has since been forgotten, maybe re-emerges onto that stage this year.
Yeah, we had a comment in the comments section. Nikki G coming with a hot take saying Knox has more touchdowns this year than Kincaid. That would be really interesting. And I'm with you guys, right?
And by the way, we're talking offense right now, right?
Yeah. So a lot of good defensive suggestions. We're going to talk defense in a little bit. But popping off the screen in the comment section was like Knox. Jessica Tennis, all capital letters, Knox. A little surprised by that, but that is a great pick. My pick is Ray Davis. I've had a ton of people text me for fantasy advice asking me about Ray Davis. Is he simply a handcuff to James Cook? And my answer to them is you might not get a lot of return on your investment early in the season, especially if James Cook stays healthy. But I think as the season progresses, Ray Davis is going to be a pretty nice fantasy player. And on top of that, I think he's going to be a pretty decently integral part of this Buffalo Bills offense. Just the way he's able to go north-south, the physicality he's able to play with, the fact that he is a threat both in the running game and in the pass catching game, the fact that he's willing to lay it out there as a pass blocker could get him under the field in some receiving situations that James Cook might typically be on the field for, because James Cook does not have the same ability to pass protect. And then on top of that, we just had this conversation with Josh Allen. I think the Buffalo Bills might finally maybe have a back where they're going to try to take some of the pressure off of Josh Allen in short yardage situations with this dude. I think the Buffalo Bills really do believe in Ray Davis. I think they like that aspect of his game. And I think they're going to experiment with that early. And if if Ray Davis has success with that, that's going to be a long-term thing where he takes some of that pressure off Josh Allen in those short yardage situations.
Yeah. And I mean, we just have to go back, right, and look at what Latavius Murray and Ty Johnson contributed last year. I'm just pulling up our setting the expectations on offense, and you start to look at last year's rushing and receiving totals, right? You have James Cook had 237 attempts. You had Latavius Murray with 79 attempts, Ty Johnson with 30 attempts, right? So there's about, I would say 80 to 100 attempts in there if you kind
Mhm.
of keep the breakdown about the same, that maybe will go to Ray Davis. And that's not even including what he might be contributing in the passing game. So, is 400 yards on the ground and, double digit to 20 plus receptions a possibility for him? Sure. But like you said, I think for fantasy, he does have marginal standalone value maybe to start the season. We'll see. But I do think his value will come as the season wears on.
The Buffalo Bills defense, where do you think that they are going to stand by the end of the season? We always like to use DVOA as our
Yeah.
metric here, especially on the pregame show. So, in terms of DVOA, do you think the Buffalo Bills will finish the 2024 season as a top 10 DVOA unit on defense?
Top 10. I think they'll be right around
Mhm.
that. I do think that DVOA was kind of them last year, even with all the injuries. The Bills defense held it together. Um, and we're talking major injuries, right? Trey White, Milano, Daquan Jones. Like these are guys that, and we're going to deal with that again with Milano this year. So it's going to have to be um, kind of looking through the glass of, hey, yes, we don't have Milano, but we've got pretty much everyone else. And then if the safeties can hold up, I think this defense can be above average to borderline top 10 when it comes to DVOA. The pass rush is going to be hugely important. Miller, Epinesa, Rousseau, and now Ed Oliver is going to have another dominant season. I do think it starts and ends with that Bills front seven. Obviously, Terrell Bernard in the mix there as well. The corners I'm
Mhm.
comfortable with, and on the back end, the safeties are the question mark. So the formula is there for them to be a top 10 DVOA defense. I'm not gonna say they're gonna be. I won't boldly predict they'll be inside the top 10, but I do think
Mhm.
they'll be a top half of the NFL defense DVOA.
Jason M comes with a great comment. He says, without Milano, I am concerned we fall below top 10 DVOA. Already had questions that could go either way, but there is no positive side to this Matt Milano injury. And I do agree with that. I think previous to the Milano's injury, I would have said somewhere between 8 and 12 is the range I would have predicted for the Buffalo Bills defense, losing some of the guys that they did and having to work in some new players. Now I'd
Mhm.
say maybe the Buffalo Bills are probably going to finish somewhere in that 11 to 15 range. So I have them
Yep. Yep.
outside of the top 15. And I think that they're going to play better over time. I think they're probably going to be more aggressive and maybe even force more turnovers, or at least force turnovers at a pretty decent rate to be a
Mm.
successful defense, even though they're outside of that top 10 by the end of the season. But I look at some of the issues and the obstacles they're going to have to face early in the season and some of the kinks that they have to work out. Dorian Williams, like, is he really your starting weak side linebacker? It looks like he is, but if he struggles, does another name get a chance like Nicholas Morrow or Balon Spector or even Joe Andreessen to go and compete for that job over the first couple of weeks? Normally, oh, Dorian Williams, he can run fit. We feel really confident with him run fitting. It's dropping back into coverage where we have our concerns. We'll just go back to that thick dime we used so well last year. Well,
Mm.
literally every single safety in your lineup outside of DeMar Hamlin, or excuse me, outside of Taylor Rapp has been on the injury report. So Mike
Mhm.
Edwards missed all of spring, all of summer. Cole Bishop missed all of summer. DeMar Hamlin, who knows? He might have the worst injury of the three in terms of prognosis to return from this point forward. So we don't even know who's starting a free safety week one right now, much
Yep.
less who can be the dime backer. So the Buffalo Bills have some issues there that they need to work out. It might take 5-6 weeks to settle that and to get guys practicing in the positions where they want them to do. And not to mention Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, more than a half a decade worth of experience together. The Buffalo
Yeah.
Bills love disguising those coverages. A lot of that stuff happens pre-snap, and you have new safeties you're working in. They're not going to be able to be as tactical pre-snap as they have been in years previous.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the big question for a lot of people, right? Is how the safety position is going to end
Mhm.
up performing, because it's one thing to start the season with new faces. It's another to start the season with new faces who have been littered all over the injury report and are building their way back up to possibly being available for week one. So obviously, it was kind of a double whammy there with the safety position and losing Poyer and Hyde, obviously, but like the combination of being new guys in the mix plus injuries has certainly left that probably as the biggest question mark, really out of any position group on the
Mhm.
roster.
Pat the Fame Gaming comes in and says the Bills defense is being grossly underrated in fantasy this year. I had a chance to take the Bills defense and I passed for the Bears defense. Because I just felt like they have such a tough schedule this year. There's going to be a growing period. Like I legitimately passed on the Bills defense for the Bears defense in fantasy this year in my one regular league. So you're right. Like even I, a Bills fan, am sleeping on this defense a little bit this season. How about sacks? Everybody loves guys who can get to the quarterback. Everybody loves teams that sack the quarterback. The Bills sacked the quarterback at a pretty high rate last year, but it dropped off pretty significantly in the back half of the season. It's one of the things that really doomed this Buffalo Bills team in the latter half of the season into the postseason. Who leads the Buffalo Bills in our favorite box score statistic, sacks, this season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, I think in the summer I said Ed Oliver, right? And I think you may have agreed with me then, and I think that's still a legitimate possibility. But the way I've seen Gregory Rousseau play in the preseason, and I know it's been limited, with him healthy, I think there's a chance between cleanup sacks and really just maybe adding that little bit of extra to his repertoire that Gregory Rousseau could lead this team in sacks in 2024. And I'm not sitting here saying like it's going to be some, Michael Strahan 20 sack season. I'm thinking like whoever leads this team in sacks will be, maybe pushing double digits, right? As far as sack totals. I think it will be a team sack effort as a unit, like we saw last year with the 54 sacks as a team that spread out quite a lot across a lot of players. Obviously, we had Leonard Floyd with the double digits last year. He's gone. I think that could be Rousseau this year. 54 sacks can be tough to match from a year ago. But I think Rousseau, I'll change my mind from the summer. I said Ed Oliver in the summer. I'll say Gregory Rousseau now.
That's really funny because I actually wrote the same exact thing in my notes here. Was originally Ed Oliver, switching to Gregory Rousseau. We've been talking about this Gregory Rousseau breakout for 2 years now, and I give ourselves a little bit of grace. The conversations we had in the preseason last year, I feel like we were on the right path, but that foot injury that he sustained and had to play the whole season through, I think really hampered his season. But one of the conversations we've had about Rousseau for 3 years now is his floor seems like an 8 sack guy who also sets the edge at an elite level. And that's pretty darn good for a back half of the first round draft pick. Like Gregory Rousseau has lived up to the hype already of where he was drafted. But watching that Steelers game, and again, just being a victim of the moment, right? I wanted so badly to have any semblance of like photoshopping skills when he was popping off in that Steelers game, because that gif of Matt Damon in Saving Private Ryan, where he goes from like young Matt Damon to old man Matt Damon. I wanted one of Gregory Rousseau going from Gregory Rousseau to Jabril Peppers. Like that transition slowly to Jabril Peppers, because I felt like
Julius Peppers, you mean?
Sorry, it's Julius Peppers. Jabril Peppers will not be good on the edge. Julius Peppers. Because I really feel like in that moment, like we were watching a little bit of Julius Peppers-esque talent level on the edge there. And obviously that's being a little hyperbolic, but he does have that type of athletic ability. He does have that type of ceiling. I never thought he would reach it, but I always knew that would be okay. But if he can reach that, look out for Gregory Rousseau this year.
I'm super excited to watch him play this year, man. I think if he's healthy and he's unleashed, I think he's gonna reach a new level to his to his standards. So I'm very excited to see what he can do this year.
Jason M, his prediction in the comment section was Von Miller. Maybe we're all sleeping on Von Miller.
If that's the case, and look, that can mean one of two things. This team is awful at getting to the quarterback this year, or Von Miller truly is a little bit back to his old self. And if, again, that means double digits leads the team, I think if you told any Bills fan right now, Von Miller would have 10 sacks in 2024, every single one of them would say, sign me up for that.
100%. He says that teams won't respect Miller early on, allow him to tally a good amount of his sacks, and then guys like Gregory Rousseau can start eating when teams have to start respecting guys like Von Miller again. So I really like that commentary right there. Last bit of the individual Bill stuff, last bit of the defense here. Breakout player on defense. Again, we talk Buffalo Bills all the time, so nothing we say is a surprise to us. Nothing we say is a surprise to the people in the chat, but something that might surprise people who do not follow the Buffalo Bills on a regular basis. Who's your breakout player for the Buffalo Bills this year?
Yeah, I guess you can't really say Gregory Rousseau is a breakout player because he's been ascending and he's had really strong seasons. I will say the breakout player for the Buffalo Bills defense this year, because Terrell Bernard broke out last year, so he doesn't count in my mind.
Even though Stephen A. Smith, I guarantee you, does not know Terrell Bernard's name.
Right. I think when he gets healthy, it'll be Cole Bishop as a rookie.
Ooh, I like that.
I just feel like when he gets right, it might not be the first half of the season. As he kind of gets his feet under him, gets his conditioning back, all that stuff. But second half of the season, I think you're going to see a little bit of a mini breakout and sort of a preview of what could be in 2025 for Cole Bishop. So I'll say the foundation for a true breakout will be set for 2025 by Cole Bishop in the second half of 2024. He will ascend.
Some great comments in the comment section. We have RJ Melville coming in saying PFF doesn't even know Terrell Bernard is a middle linebacker. Nikki G coming in saying, I hope it's Taylor Rapp. I would like that one. Sophia comes in, says AJ Epinesa. I would like that one. Claude Puy with Kyer Elam. I like that one. But right now, Kyer Elam's not even expected to start. So I'm going with the guy at the cornerback position who is expected to start. And I'm going to say Christian Benford. And this is going to go again to this conversation that I was having this past weekend with my brother-in-law. And he's like, you really don't want Kyer Elam starting over Christian Benford? You're really okay with Christian Benford as your starting corner?
Yes.
I was like, dude, I think if you followed the Buffalo Bills, you would be completely fine with Christian Benford as one of your starting corners. But that's not a knock on my brother-in-law. I think he sees like, hey, Kyer Elam, first-round draft pick, right? Christian Benford, sixth-round pick. Oh, Christian Benford hasn't puked all over himself in the National Football League, but look at the ceiling of a guy like Kyer Elam. I think Christian Benford has a very similar ceiling. He just doesn't have the draft pedigree to go with it. I think by the end of this season, people nationally will know who Christian Benford is to the point where they will respect him as a starting corner in the National Football League. When Rasul Douglas exits stage left at the end of the season, I think that is Kyer Elam's opportunity to enter the starting lineup full-time in 2025. And it's really nice that I feel like we are able to, or going to be able to salvage that first round pick. And of course, injuries do happen. Benford, a guy who has not made it through a full season in his 2 seasons as a starter here. So Kyer Elam will get an opportunity this year as well. So I'm going with Christian Benford. Taylor Rapp was a good one. AJ Epinesa was a good one. And obviously, if Kyer Elam gets a chance to play, let's hope it's Kyer Elam. Am I right? I mean, if he's on the field, let's hope it's him.
Yeah, if he's on the field. And that's part of why I didn't go with him, because it's like you don't want him, like you don't necessarily want him to be on the field because that means someone's likely injured. But look, if he does, then yeah, more power to him.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick sponsorship break because this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza. 4 great locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. You can order online at picassospizza.net. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, you can even get it mailed fresh to your home. Once again, it's just a click away at picassospizza.net. I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to Sunday, looking forward to getting that Picasso's Pizza from picassospizza.net in the mail, not frozen, it's fresh, right? So you got to pop it in that oven within like a day or two, unless you want to freeze it. And I'll tell you what, man, it's my wife, not from Buffalo, never had a Buffalo pizza before. Shame on me. Her first Buffalo pizza experience was mail order Picasso's Pizza. Not getting her the real stuff when we went to Buffalo, but she was just sitting there in awe at how good this pizza was for being mailed across the country. So picassospizza.net, if you're an out-of-towner like us, or even if you are a guy who is in town, you can get yourself some Picasso's Pizza for game day and Sword Brother Joseph says, I just feel like Judge is an IPA guy. Oh, 100%. You have me nailed. I am a IPA guy all the way. Love me some of these West Coast IPAs that I get out here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I was just telling my wife I got to head up Total Wine this week, make make myself a 6-pack. It's been a while since I've enjoyed beer. Like I just get the supermarket, stuff or whatever, get a beer here or there when we go out to eat. So I was like, I got to get back to the finer things in life, and I got to go make my own 6-pack at Total Wine this week to have something to enjoy for football this week. It's a little something for myself,
Yeah.
So yeah, you got Sword Brother. You have me 100% pegged. All right, so let's make some predictions now, not just for the Buffalo Bills, but for the NFL season in totality. We're going to go division by division, and we're going to make our predictions for which teams we think will win the divisions. Then we'll obviously make our 3 wild card predictions. And on top of all of that, we'll make our 1 seed prediction and our Super Bowl predictions as well over the next 15, 20 minutes or so. Let's start in the NFC since we just talked about the Bills. We'll end with the Bills. Let's go to the NFC shift. There is other football teams than the Buffalo Bills, Let's start with the NFC East. Who do you think is going to win the NFC East this year?
I think the Eagles are going to win the NFC East. I think they have essentially loaded up that offense for Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley now in the mix. I know they lost Kelsey to retirement. They also traded for Jahan Dotson within the division. The Commanders, I think that will come back to bite the Commanders. And I know he's been kind of battling injuries over the last couple of years and hasn't necessarily played a full season, but Dallas Goedert's still there. So you've got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley now. You still have Kenny Gainwell. You drafted Will Shipley. You still have a really good offensive line. I think the defense will be adequate enough. And to be honest, the Commanders, although they will be exciting to watch this year for the first time in however long, and the Giants, I don't think are a real threat. And the Dallas Cowboys, to me, I feel like are going to be very, very concentrated on CeeDee Lamb. And I don't see other than Jake Ferguson, maybe don't love their running game. Running backs with Zeke Elliott back in the mix, Dowdle, okay, fine. I just feel like it's
Dalvin Cook's not doing it for you?
No, he's not doing it for me. I think that it's the Eagles' division to lose, and I'm going to say the Eagles will win the division.
I almost feel like the Cowboys are intentionally like trying to take a step back this year. Like Jerry Jones is like trying to tank him so he can finally fire McCarthy and move on from Dak Prescott. Like I got this like weird feeling
Get Belichick in there.
Like what they're trying to do, because some of the decisions they made this offseason, I'm with you. I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, Kellen Moore is a great offensive coordinator. He takes the pressure off of Nick Sirianni. You got Vic Fangio coming in to call the defense. They've shored up some of the issues that they had that led to their collapse last season. The on-paper talent is there. The coaching staff is there. I just think the rest of the division is lacking at this point as well, even though I think the Commanders are ascending. And, obviously the Giants, they're not going to be an easy out, and the Cowboys are not going to be an easy out. But I do feel like the Eagles just have a massive paper advantage in that division. So I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles as well. How about the NFC North? Do the Detroit Lions repeat in the NFC North, or do a team like the Packers usurp them?
I think the Lions will repeat. I think the Bears and Packers will be nipping on their heels. The Packers obviously had that incredible run last year, and then the amazing blowout win against Dallas in the playoffs, which we all enjoyed that, obviously. But the Lions look legit. I mean, they've just sort of reloaded as well. Jahmyr Gibbs going into year 2. Jamison Williams came on at the end of last year as a complement to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we know is awesome. That 1-2 punch of Gibbs and Montgomery is legit. The Lions have a great offensive line. Their defense is good. Dan Campbell's got them rolling. Jared Goff's at home, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. For me, it's still the Lions until one of these, young guns of Jordan Love or Caleb Williams can knock them off. And I think the Vikings, obviously, now with Sam Darnold kind of at the helm, to me, will be a 4th place team in that division.
Yeah, I got the Lions as well. Their quarterback is first of all, they've zigged while everyone else has zagged, and they've really put an emphasis on controlling games on the ground. And I think that has really helped them out and will continue to help the Detroit Lions out. But Jared Goff is their quarterback, right? And his kryptonite is like wind and rain and snow. They don't play an outdoor game, I think, until week 9 against the Packers,
I'm
and then
looking
they
at their
have
schedule
the
right now.
Bears. They have, like, all their games are in a dome this year, except for, like, the Packers away game and the Bears away game. Like, it's literally just dome, dome,
Pack
dome, 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 like
Packers away week 9. They play at Arizona week 3, which will be inside, I'm sure, at that
yeah,
point. Yeah, everything yeah, you're right, and
just
then
domes. The
yeah,
Detroit Lions have outsmarted math itself, just like the Bills did with Josh Allen.
at
They
Chicago week 16 and
you
at
think
San Francisco week 17
you
outside.
you literally think an NFC team who plays, like, in the NFC North
Yeah, they're gonna be
would
good.
would need this, like, grizzled, like, outdoor ready quarterback, and no, they have Jared Goff, and they're gonna be completely fine, because all they do is play in domes, so I'm gonna go with the Detroit Lions as well, and that leads us to kind of the running joke of the National Football League the past couple of
Mhm.
years, especially since Tom Brady has called it quits, and even in Tom Brady's last season, they were kind of a running joke, this division. That's the AFC South. I think a lot of people
NFC
have
South.
their NFC South, excuse me. A
Yep.
lot of people have their money on the Atlanta Falcons. Are you one of those people?
I hate to say that I am, but I am. The
Mhm.
Falcons look, last year I got burned by picking the Saints and Derek Carr thinking they would come in, him and Olave, like, there were some chemistry issues there. I do think it will be the
Mhm.
Saints and the Falcons kinda gunning for it. I think the Panthers are still gonna be pretty bad this year, and, Tampa Bay, I know it they were good like, good, I would say.
Yeah.
They won the division last year, but at the end of the day, it's like this division seems to turn over and not have a repeat champ almost every year. So, for me, I'm looking at the team that looks like they've got some swagger. They've made some interesting moves on the defensive side of the ball. They got Kirk Cousins playing inside the
Mhm.
dome. Maybe they can finally unleash Kyle Pitts. They got Drake London. They got Darnell Mooney. They have Bijan, obviously, and Tyler
Yeah.
Algier as a nice complementary weapon. So I am going to go with the Falcons for better or for worse. I'm trusting Kirk Cousins to make it to the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to do anything more than that, but I
Mhm.
do think for me, my money's got to be on the Falcons because I got burned by the Saints last year. So I just can't pick the Saints.
I'll tell you what, I had the Bucks until this morning, and I changed it this morning. I think Baker Mayfield's got enough weapons there in Tampa Bay, and
Yeah.
Todd Bowles is going to call a good defense for them to be competitive. But they did lose Dave Canales. They do replace him with Liam Cohen, who is a McVay disciple, but has had trouble in the NFL when he was the one tasked with calling plays. So I put them on the back burner and I went with the Atlanta Falcons
Yep.
just like you did. I think the biggest question mark with them is going to be Kirk Cousins' health. Like, how long does it take him to get back into a rhythm? But if he is the Kirk Cousins of old, that should be the Atlanta Falcons division. My upset pick comes out of the NFC West. This is going to probably, I think I'm going to be met with complete disagreement from everyone in the comment section. I'm going to be flame broiled for this one on social media. I'm not going with the San Francisco 49ers to win the NFC West. I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks.
Mm.
I think that they have a completely competent quarterback in Geno Smith. I think they have just a plethora of weapons, both on the ground and in the air. I mean, just weapons galore. I think they've shored up the interior of that offensive line. And then you have Mike McDonald, who's just like this evil genius on defense. And just he might be the best defensive play caller, since Bill Belichick, I think. I really hold Mike McDonald in high regard there. So the combination of McDonald calling that defense and just what they have on offense with Trent Williams missing all of training camp, with Brandon Ayuk missing all of training camp, and some of the issues that they're having in San Francisco, I think San Francisco gets off to a slow start. I'm going with Seattle.
I think didn't you have like a Seattle Bills Super Bowl last
Yeah, I
year?
did. Let's not
Yeah,
talk about
you
that one.
you you like Seattle for
Which
some
is
reason.
weird. I actually like the Rams the most, but they're not healthy. So Jessica
Yeah,
Tennis of the Rams. I
I'm
love
going
the Rams, but like their injury history, their injury that stuff's got me a little on the fence for them.
yeah, the rant like we'll talk about that in the wild card bit, but
Mhm.
I can't go against the 49ers. I know Ayuk, just came back, but Debo health is always the thing with him. Kenny, he gets these like, misses games here or there, but like Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, McCaffrey, The defense is still really good with Bosa. I mean, in more like I just can't pick against the 49ers in that division until I see someone else do it. So
Mhm.
kind of be the similar story as the Chiefs in the AFC West. Obviously, I think there's a little the NFC West is going to be more competitive than the AFC
Yeah.
West on the other side, but I can't go against the Niners.
Claude, they were my Super Bowl pick last year. That was a big epic fail by me. They're not my Super Bowl pick. I'm not making that mistake again this year. I did not have a lot of respect for the NFC last year. And of course, San Francisco, who was the front runner, just sort of ran away with it. How about your wild cards? I have Packers, 49ers, and Bucks. The reason why I have the Bucks in that last spot is I really don't like to put three teams from one division into the playoffs. I just think that there's just a lower percentage of
Mm,
happening. So I like the Rams, but I have questions about their ability to stay healthy, and I have questions about their defense now that they've traded Ernest Jones and have a new defensive coordinator. So again, I just mentioned the Bucks when we were talking about the Falcons. Baker
mhm,
Mayfield distributing to a ton of really nice weapons on that offense. Todd Bowles in that defense. I think the
mhm.
Bucks slide into that last spot. So Packers, 49ers, Bucks for me in terms of NFC wildcard.
So I did my wild cards, and I did my near misses, which are the
Mhm.
last two teams that I didn't have in. I have the Cowboys, Packers, and Rams as my wild card teams. I do think the Rams, Stafford, and McVay, that combo. Although Stafford's aging, when he was right last year, he was legit, and now he's going to have two alphas, basically. I know
Mhm.
Cup's over 30 now, but back and healthy. All the reports out of camp are glowing on him. Kyron Williams was a beast last year. They got Blake Corum in the mix too as a rookie now. The defense is the question, as you said, but I do like some of the draft picks they made. I don't know how much of an immediate impact they will have, but I like the Rams to still be competitive. I think people counted them out last year, and they showed that you can't count them
Mhm.
out with Cup and Nakua and Kyron Williams, McVay and Stafford. I'm putting them in as my last team in. The Packers, I think, will build um, have another solid season with Jordan Love at the helm. And the Cowboys, I think, just out of the sheer fact that they're going to be playing the Giants twice, the Commanders twice, I think they're still a very good team. They have a good defense that they will find their way into the playoffs. My last two out near misses were the Bucks and the Bears.
Mhm.
Those were my two that I was considering putting in. I think the Hard Knocks maybe uh, hypnosis has gotten to me. I'm pretty high on the Bears. I love their weapons. I think they could make noise, but I think they might just be a year away. And I think the Bucks, like you said, I mean, who knows what could happen in that NFC South? They do have
Yep.
good weapons. And it looks like Godwin's going to be back to kind of his normal slot position this year in that offense, which I think is good for him. So Bucks and Bears are my last
Yeah.
two out.
Yeah, I really wanted to find a place for the Bears, just couldn't find a place for the Bears with the Packers and the Lions, I think being clearly ahead of them right now in that division. Shifting now to the AFC. We'll save the AFC East for last year and the Buffalo Bills. So let's start with the AFC West. The easy pick here is the Kansas City Chiefs. Are you going with sort of the easy pick here in the Kansas City Chiefs?
I am. I mean, 2 years ago, I thought this division was gonna be really competitive. Russell Wilson coming to Denver, Herbert ascending, Derek Carr still in Vegas, at the time Oakland. But to me, this division has really taken a step back outside of the Chiefs. The Chargers lost all their weapons, new coach with Harbaugh. I get that. He's a good coach. Sean Payton's second year in Denver. Bo Nix at the helm. He's a rookie. And I think the Raiders will be absolutely trash this year. The Raiders have some star power at individual spots, but I just think as a
Mhm.
team, they're not going to be very good. So you can't pick against the Chiefs in this division.
I, I think that Denver will be feisty. I think
They
that
will be.
I
They
think
will be.
Vegas will be feisty. I think that the Chargers will be feisty as well. I think though there's some feisty teams in that division, but I just look at the talent in that division. I just think that most of said talent lies in Kansas City, and they have the one dude that those other teams do not, and that is Patrick Mahomes. So the only other quarterback really that can sniff Mahomes' jock in that division has been sailed with Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator. So that really
Yeah.
sucks for for Justin Herbert. So I went with the Chiefs. They're the easiest path, in my opinion, to the playoffs of any team in the National Football League this year.
Yep.
All they simply have to do is stay healthy. I think another team with a relatively easy path to the postseason this year, because again, I think their division is full of teams that are feisty, but not really all that talented, is the Houston Texans in the AFC South. I
Agreed.
have them winning that division.
Yep.
I just think that the combination of D'Amico Ryan's defense to go along with that San Francisco Bobby Slowick offense, CJ Stroud, and all those weapons, I think Houston's going to run away with the AFC South.
I love the Texans. I'm a big CJ Stroud fan. That offense is loaded with Diggs, Collins, and Dell. Still have Dalton Schultz at tight end, and really no one ever talks about anymore because you talk about the receivers. You got Mixon, who you signed to be your RB1 as well. And that defense is ascending with some of the good draft picks they've had. D'Amico Ryans is one of my favorite coaches, up and coming coaches in the league. I really like the Texans. I mean, just think about that. I know it's not fantasy, it's not real life, but like think about fantasy football and you think about 3 receivers from the same team, a running back and a quarterback, all getting picked probably within the first 5 rounds in a fantasy drafts from that offense is pretty nuts, honestly. That offense is going to be fun to watch, and I'm a big CJ Stroud fan, so I do think it's the Texans with some feisty teams, like you said, but I think it's theirs to win.
The toughest division for me to predict was the AFC North. Baltimore, they lose a ton of talent like they do every year and replace it with supplemental picks, but they also lose Mike McDonald, who I mentioned earlier in the show, I think is the best defensive play caller in the National Football League. Nothing but respect for what McDonald did with that defense and what he's going to do in Seattle. You have Pittsburgh, who I think have a really talented roster, but they're not really deep at receiver. They have an offensive coordinator who loves to throw the ball over the middle and a quarterback who refuses to throw the ball over the middle. Like just some questionable personnel decisions for what is a talented roster in Pittsburgh. And then you have Cleveland, who paid a quarterback who apparently his shoulder is shot and he takes up like all of their salary cap, but they have a really good defense. And then you have the Cincinnati Bengals and Jamar Chase still hasn't put on pads yet. Like, but they're a talented football team. It's tough because it is so competitive. I feel like any 4 of these teams can easily win this division. And then the other 3 teams might just miss the postseason altogether because they're just going to knock the crap out of each other.
This is a fun division to watch the games of, and there's plenty of primetime games of this division this year. I do enjoy watching these AFC North matchups. I have the Ravens winning the division, I think, with Lamar. Zay Flowers going into year 2. Andrews back and healthy. You bring in Derrick Henry for a ride into the sunset, hopefully to get him deep into the postseason. That defense was really, really good last year. Kyle Hamilton, one of the best, if not the best, maybe the best defensive player in the NFL. You can make an argument that he's in that conversation. I'm not going to put him there yet necessarily, but he's in the conversation. So Joe Burrow, what's that Cincinnati running game going to look like with Chase Brown and Zach Moss? Is it going to be a lot and too much on Joe Burrow's shoulders? I know he can handle that pressure, but like you said, Chase, he's going to be fine, I'm sure, but some turnover on that team. And
if it takes 4 or 5 weeks for him to get his feet under him, and you lose a couple of games in that span, that could cost you your division. And how tight that is, that's where I struggle with it.
The Steelers will be what they are. They'll be 9-8 or something just like that, and they'll be right
Tomlin
there at the end. They have a good
them.
defense, and they just didn't help. They just didn't help their offense out. They traded Deontay Johnson. They have George Pickens, and I know they drafted Roman Wilson, and that's fine. But it's who's going to step up as their second receiver? It could be Pat Freiermuth as their number 2 offensive weapon. And the Browns, I have 0 faith in Deshaun Watson as a football player, regardless of the contract and all that. He looked absolutely shot to me when he was playing last year. That shoulder looks awful. They have good players on that team. They have Amari Cooper. They have Jerry Jeudy. They have Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb coming back eventually from injury. And that defense is awesome. But that with Deshaun Watson, I don't trust him. So for me, it's the Ravens.
That leaves us with the AFC East, and I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit here. I know we're Bills fans in the show, and I know the Buffalo Bills are recalibrating, but I have the Buffalo Bills winning the AFC East again. I'm just going to pick them until someone proves that they can win the AFC East, because everyone had the Jets last year and then Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. The Jets are like the darling Super Bowl pick out of the AFC this year, which I don't understand when Aaron Rodgers is 40-something years old coming off the injury that he's coming off of. I get they have a good defense. I get that they have Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, but I mean, predicting them to win the Super Bowl. It's just wild to me. And then you have the Miami Dolphins, who lost some talent, gained some talent, but they absolutely floundered in the back half of the season last year, and they did nothing to improve an offensive line that essentially, did Tua in towards the back half of last season. So I have the Buffalo Bills. I know they're recalibrating. I have them winning the AFC East. I know the popular pick is to have them missing the playoffs nationally or being a wild card team nationally. What is your take? Does someone dethrone the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East this year?
I don't think so, but I think it's going to be very similar to last year, where it may come
Mm-hmm.
down to the last week or two of the season, and we may be looking at the fact that we are hoping the New England Patriots are going to be maybe one of the worst teams in the league this year. Hopefully, that the Bills play them in 2 of the last 3 weeks of the season, and that if the Bills really need to get 2 wins at the end of the year, and the Jets, by the way, sandwich in between that, those last 3 games of the year could be the difference between the Bills winning the division and possibly missing out on the playoffs, a similar scenario that we almost saw play out last year. If it weren't for the Tennessee Titans winning that game
Mm-hmm.
at the last week of the season, guaranteeing the Bills a playoff spot, regardless of what happened in that game against the Dolphins, but could be in a situation where it's a win the division or go home scenario at the end of the season. You don't want that, but I do think the Bills have enough juice, and they still have the best quarterback in the division and the second best quarterback, in my opinion, in the NFL. And I think that the youth movement could be a nice thing for the Bills. They can take this chip on their shoulder into the season,
Mm-hmm.
feeling like people are picking against them. These young guys don't know any better. Go out and do what you want. And when I say don't know any better, I mean like they don't they don't care that the Bills have won 3, 4 divisions in a row. Like, this is a new season for for
Mm-hmm.
these young guys and for these rookies and these guys that are just signed, like Curtis Samuel. Like, this is a new season. They want to prove something. I think that Bills will win the division this year. It may only take 10 games to do it, possibly 11, but I do think they pull it off.
Looking at the wild card picks here, I have the Dolphins and the Bengals in my 5th and 6th spots. And then the 7th spot was tough. I think that the team I'm about to name here, I do not think that they're the 7th best team in the AFC. I don't. I just think that I don't like picking 3 teams from one division. So Steelers, sorry. Browns, sorry. Jets, sorry. Can't pick you here. So I went with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 7th spot. I just think they have enough juice on offense, and they have enough on defense to get themselves enough wins to where when the other teams that are more talented are just eating each other alive in their divisions, the Jaguars are able to sneak themselves into that 7th seed.
Yeah, this was tough for me. I actually had the Jets as the 7 coming in. I have the Dolphins missing the playoffs. Maybe that'll come back to bite me. I do have the Bengals in as a wild card team, and I went back and forth whether I was going to pick the Jags or the Colts, and I really went back and forth a lot
Mhm.
on this one. I actually ended up going with the Colts. I think that collapse last year that Jacksonville had in the second half of the season, they've had some turnover at the skill position. I get it. You know, you drafted Brian Thomas, you brought in Gabe Davis. You still have Christian Kirk, you have Travis Etienne. I like their roster. I do think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a good season this year, but for some reason, I just can't find myself to trust the Jags, which I know sounds weird because, like, how can you trust the Colts? How can you trust Anthony Richardson, who hasn't really proven that
Mhm.
anything in a season yet? But I like the Colts coaching staff. I like their roster too. I like Pittman. I like Jonathan Taylor. I like Anthony Richardson. I like them playing inside. I just think that that Colts team is going to be a tough out. I'll put them in as the last team in over the Jags, and I'll have the Jags and Dolphins missing the playoffs, and that maybe is a hot take, but that's what I'm going with.
Good thing you said Jags, because according to the comment section, I mispronounced Jaguar. It's Jaguar, not Jaguar. So apologies to Duval County there.
I
The
just say Jags.
Jaguars.
I don't even say it.
Before we get into our league MVP and our Super Bowl predictions, how about the 1 seed? Who do you have as the 1 seed in both the AFC and the NFC? Because again, new NFL, these are the only teams that get that bye week.
Yeah. So the NFC East plays the NFC South this year, which means the Eagles get to play the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Bucks, Saints, and Falcons. They get to play the Giants twice. I have the Eagles as the 1 seed in the NFC,
Mhm.
and I have the Chiefs as the 1 seed in the AFC. I think the Chiefs legitimately could go 6-0 in their division, and then honestly, maybe only have to win 7 other games, 6 other games, 12
Mhm.
wins. 12 wins might get you the 1 seed in the AFC. So I have the Eagles as the 1 seed in the NFC, and I have the Chiefs as the 1 seed in the AFC.
For myself, I was looking at it. I was going back and forth. I think the Eagles are going to give them a run for their money, but I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions in the NFC as my 1 seed. I
Nice.
think they
I like that.
take the next step as well there, and
I
I
have them
think
as
the Kansas City Chiefs have, again, just the easiest path to the 1 seed of anyone just because of the division that they play in. I think Houston will make it interesting. I think Houston will be the team in the AFC that makes it interesting, but I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs there as well. All right. That means league MVP is next in our conversation list before we give our Super Bowl predictions. Dave, I'm going to start with you. Is this the year that Josh Allen does it? Does he win MVP, or do you have somebody else winning the league's most coveted individual prize?
I'm gonna make this prediction with my head and not my heart because I just don't think the
There-
voters want to
There's
give
a
the
bias.
award. They don't want to give the award to Josh Allen. He's had MVP caliber seasons, in the past, going even
Mhm.
just as recently as last year, and because his team needed to win the last game of the year and all the whatever, he didn't win it. So I'm making this prediction not because I don't think he would deserve it or could win it, but I just don't think that even if he does deserve it, he will win it. So this is gonna really pay me to say, but I think Pat Mahomes is gonna win the MVP in 2024. Kelsey, Rice, Worthy, Pacheco. Like I just and
Hollywood.
that's schedule. Yeah, Hollywood when
Mm.
he's back from his injury. Like I just think it's setting up for the Chiefs to just
I,
roll this year, and
I
Pat's gonna have a big year.
I can see that too. Like we want to talk all the time about how the Bills have Kansas City'd their offense, right? Adding those big body contested catch guys, adding your Travis Kelsey type in Dalton Kincaid. But we're trying to mimic the Kansas City of the past 2 years. What did Kansas City go out and do this offseason? They added Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. So the Kansas City Chiefs were in like the need for speed this offseason. So that is interesting for them. But I'm going to zag a little bit here. We did have the conversation last year about what was holding Josh Allen back, and that was team success. The Buffalo Bills were never like the 1 seed. Hardly ever did they approach the 2 seed. So therefore, Josh Allen wasn't really getting that respect because really, I think you got to be like a 1 or a 2 seed in order to win this award. So I'm not going to go with Patrick Mahomes, but I'm going to go in the AFC to that team that I was mentioning as the ones that are going to be nipping on the Chiefs' heels because I think they have an easier schedule than others. I'm going to go with CJ Stroud as my
Mm,
pick for NFL MVP. I think
love it.
the schedule is to his advantage. You have a Shanahan disciple in Bobby Slowick calling plays there. I think he's going to be a head coach sooner rather than later. You have a solid dual threat running back in Joe Mixon. You have a really good offensive line with bookend tackles in Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. And then you have Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, Brevin Jordan to throw the ball to. Just like an insane amount of weapons. I don't know, right, if CJ Stroud is going to be able to push the Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons to be QB1 in fantasy because he doesn't give you that rushing upside. But this is probably going to be the most efficient quarterback in football this season.
Yeah, he could take a page out of Joe Burrow's playbook, right? We've seen like Joe Burrow can I'm not gonna say he can run, but he can move a little. He kind of gives me CJ Stroud kind of gives me that Joe Burrow vibe where it's like no matter what, he's gonna put the ball where it needs to be. He's gonna have one of the highest completion percentages in the league, like Joe Burrow has done when he's been healthy. And while the rushing upside is limited, we've seen Joe Burrow in the past with a trio like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd put up really, really good numbers. That could be CJ Stroud this year, and he could be in that conversation. If the Texans find themselves pushing for that top seed, and maybe it's not the 1 seed, but maybe it's a 2 seed, I could see CJ Stroud as a contender. And I also think that the 1 seed quarterback of my prediction, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, could be in for a bounce back year, and he could
Mhm.
be in contention for an MVP as well. I think last year it should have gone to Tyreek or Christian McCaffrey, to be
Yeah,
honest. I
100%.
think a non-quarterback should have won it
Yeah.
last year. And
Of all the years they were going to, that was the year to do it.
but it's just not gonna happen, right?
Mhm.
Unless it's like an AP type 2,000-yard season like he had
Yeah,
off the ACL, like, that's the last
we gotta
non-quarterback to win it.
you gotta wait for the Boise State running back to get to the NFL and go for 6 tutties a game. Then you'll have your NFL MVP, be a position player. All right, closing out the show here, we have our Super Bowl prediction. Dave, I'll start with you. Who do you got in the Super Bowl this year, and who do you got winning it?
Well, I pick the Bills every year to be in the Super Bowl, and they never get to it, so I'm gonna zag a little bit here and just not pick them because then maybe they will get there and make me look stupid. So I'm gonna say this year, even though I have the Eagles as the 1 seed in the NFC, I think the Detroit Lions are going to topple the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year, and the Lions are gonna beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell's going to have his moment. That Lions team is stacked. They're going to, like you said, be playing inside all year. They're going to be on a groove, and I think that team is ready to take the next step. They were oh so close in that NFC Championship game last year against the Niners. I think they either take out the Eagles or the Niners somewhere in the playoffs this year on their way to the Super Bowl and knock off the Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry, I'm not picking the Bills to
Yeah,
be in the Super Bowl this year, but maybe that's a good thing because I picked
yeah.
them the last 3 or 4 years. So
If you rewind the tape to last year, my exact comment was, I'm going to pick the Bills to win the Super Bowl every year because I'm a Bills fan, and that's just what Bills fans do. And then hopefully one year it will become true. But I decided that I'm going to try to pull the reverse psychology card as well this year. And I actually have the same exact 2 teams as you do. I have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions, but I have the Kansas City Chiefs beating the
see,
Detroit
I
Lions.
couldn't go that far.
It was
I just couldn't do it.
To me, it's the same logic that applies to me saying the Bills win the AFC East until someone proves they can do otherwise, right?
Yeah,
I'm pulling that card with the Kansas City Chiefs right now.
that's fair.
Someone please prove to me that someone other than the Kansas City Chiefs are capable. I'm begging you. Prove to me someone other than the Kansas City Chiefs are capable of winning the Super Bowl. But what really sold me was some statistics that Warren Sharp dropped on his X handle. And Warren Sharp is like, you got to pick and choose which ones of some of his stats you're gonna follow, because some I think are better than others. But he cherry picked some stats here from the 2023 Kansas City Chiefs. According to his metrics, they were below average as an early down offense. They scored the 6th least amount of points on early downs last year. They were number 32 in air yards per attempt. They had the 5th least second half points of any team in the NFL, and they were dead last in EPA per pass in the 4th quarter. And they still won the Super Bowl. You have literally Steve Spagnuolo, who's just an evil genius defensive coordinator who can take trash and turn them into Super Bowl champions. He literally orchestrated those Giants wins over those Tom Brady Patriot teams. And no offense to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo won that Super Bowl for you last year with that defense. So you got him on the defensive side of the ball with guys like Chris Jones. I know they lost their corner whose name I'm blank on, Snead. There we go. I know they lost him, but you have all that talent on defense. You had Hollywood Brown and you had Xavier Worthy, and that speed to that offense. It's just, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs. I hope I'm wrong. Somebody please prove to me that you can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I want to be wrong. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs here as well.
I mean, the only reason like I didn't pick the Chiefs to win is because I already felt bad about not picking the Bills to be in the Super Bowl and win it. So I'm like, I can't just like kill myself even more by picking them to win, even though they probably fucking will win again, man.
All right, folks. Just a reminder, we have our pregame show this Sunday at 8 a.m. We'll be live from 8 to 9:15, 9:30, right? And if you can't catch us that early, well, that just means that we're available to you on demand, and the show is relevant to watch on demand between the hours of 9:30 and 1 p.m. when the Buffalo Bills kick off against the Arizona Cardinals. I think there are some interesting things that we're going to have to talk about this Sunday. You have Kyler's variance, right? He can move, he can get out of the pocket. That's something we're going to have to talk about. They have a really efficient ground game led by James Conner. That's something we're going to have to talk about. But obviously, as we mentioned at the top of the show, they're really not all that scary up front on defense. They have an atrocious on paper front seven. The Buffalo Bills should be able to exploit that. In terms of the Bills, a lot of questions there. How long for the offense to get into a groove? Who starts at weak side linebacker? Is it Dorian Williams? Is it a sleeper? Is Nicholas Morrow end up pulling a Terrell Bernard and being the starter week one? Does Balin Spector start week one? And then who starts at safety and thick dime? A lot of questions to be answered by Sunday. So a lot of things, a lot of question marks that sort of this game is going to be tighter than I think some people think.
Yeah, and I think just real quick, we're either going to do 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. I'm trying to work out the time, but it will be in the morning sometime so that if people can't catch it early, you'll have time to watch it leading up to the game. So TBD, but look out for the notification from the YouTube alert. It'll either be 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. But you're right. I think that in week one, you just never know until they kind of go out onto the field. I mean, you have a good idea about 99% of who it's going to be, and there's always maybe that one that is a little bit of a surprise. So would it shock me if it's Nicholas Morrow? No, it would not shock me. And the vet, he's there. Like, it's one of those things where you've seen Sean McDermott keep a player like Casey Tuhill on the roster who really didn't show a lot in training camp. Nicholas Morrow, a vet as well, maybe doesn't need to show the coaching staff a lot to know that they have his trust and maybe he gets the nod.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you on Sunday. Hopefully my internet was better today. I did a whole bunch of voodoo magic. I cleared my cache. I deleted every file on my desktop. I restarted my computer. I even, and this is my wife's personal favorite, bought a 75-foot Ethernet cable, which is currently running across my entire house from downstairs to upstairs. That I need to plug and unplug before every show now. But I did everything in my power to make sure the internet would stay from start to finish. So thankfully, all of these remedies paid off. But thank you guys so much. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!